Welcome. We're finally here and we're excited to be here. We're here at the River of Praise. I'm with my boy right here, Richard Jennings. We're glad to have him, and we're doing a Erase Races Facebook Live. We bring it to you once again because we know that there's only one, the human race. And so we're here to talk about that this evening. And we're just thrilled to be here at the River of Praise in this nice place. We're in his house, you know. He always says it's his house.
It's his house.
But hey, we're here and we're ready. But let me get a few formalities out of the way. This evening, of course, it's going to be a little bit different because, of course, we've got a guest, and normally you just got me and you got me pontificating. So today you got two of us pontificating. No, we're going to have a discussion here. Richard and I, we're going to have a good discussion about life. And we're going to talk about these things. And, of course, you know, we want to talk about how we think that, race is not a thing and that people are a thing. And so we'll talk about that to some extent. We'll get his views. And then we will still have opportunity for you to call in with questions. So we hope any time during this broadcast that you can put your questions in there. My brilliant crew, my production crew, the SEALs crew, we call them, they're over here on the side, and they're going to have all your questions. We're going to make sure we don't miss any. And if we do miss one, they'll get it over here to me so we can respond to it. And so that's my production crew. I always give them a shout out because they're really good. All right. So one other thing I want to do, I want to make a shameless plug before we get started here for the Erase Races t-shirt. I've got the blue one on. I love the blue. You can get the blue, or you can get the gray one. Here you go with the gray one.
Looks good.
Hey, and this helps sponsor the cause. This is the cause, American Unity. That's the cause. You can help it out when you go and buy a t-shirt, and it's not really expensive. And remember, it's such a good cause that you'd want to pay it anyway. All right, so do that and support the movement. And without any further ado, hey, we'll get on with our discussion here. All right, so glad to have you, Richard. Really glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
So that's cool. Now, the viewers might not know, but of course we know. We went to the same high school, grew up together, and kind of thing in Waller County, of all places. We're both Waller High School Bulldog products, and so I just want to start out, just asking some general questions about what do you think about the whole coming from small town Waller into now you're big time here with River of Praise, but give us some of just a background on your experiences and things growing up. Give us a little bit of insight into Richard Jennings.
Well, it's only by the grace of God I am where I am today. I never, as a kid growing up, never thought I'd be a preacher. And a multicultural church with people from all different backgrounds. And it's one of the things that we say all the time is there will be a day in heaven where every tribe, every nation, and every tongue will be gathered together. It says there's 30 minutes of silence in heaven. And I think it's going to be because all the naysayers that would say there's no way this could happen, God's going to make it happen. Every tribe, every nation, every tongue going to be singing one song, the holy, holy, holy song. Whoa. If you don't like the way it's being sung, guess what? You'll have your chance too. So just okay. So we grew up in Waller. We were talking earlier about the culture and the diversity in our school. I said it was 40-40, 18, and then 2, which is 40% black, 40% white, 20% or 18% Hispanic, and then 2% Asian, Indian, Hindu, other, right? But you said it was really like 45-35, and then a blend of everything else. But I was thinking about that after we finished talking earlier today. Is the actual place where I lived was not very diverse at all. And then I think about Prairie View A&M, where a lot of my friends grew up, just not polar opposite, but just different in the sense that where you lived really wasn't that diverse. But when we got in the school building, or we got on the school grounds, it was like somehow, some way, maybe not all of it fell off, but for me and for many of my friends, it all fell off, and we grew up together. And, we did ag projects together. We ran track. Anthony Tabs playing tennis, just different things in the band together. And it was just, I loved what we had. And I wish that other kids that went to school or are going to school could have that feel, because it was pretty special.
Yeah, and that's pretty key too, because one of the things, my dad just turned 91 this past weekend, and I happened to have the opportunity to sit down with him and ask him the question about how often when you were growing up did you have an integrated environment? How often were you in an integrated setting? School, did you have any friends who were of different? And he told me that, I've been at Prairie View for the last 50 years. Right. And so 50 years, that he spent at Prairie View, which was a pretty much segregated or, environment. And so he never really had exposure to an integrated environment. And so that explained a lot to me about why sometimes the elderly people in our communities have the views they do. And it's not that they are racial or that they're racist, it's that they've never had exposure. And I think that's one of the things that you're talking about at Waller. We were able to get that exposure. And then we kind of, like you said, we retreated. I retreated to Prairie View, retreated to your enclave or whatever. But school happened, really, you saw more people during school than you saw at your home or whatever. So you lived a lot in that integrated environment. So you remember anything? What's a key event or anything that happened while you were there at Waller? What was something big that might have happened?
We just had a class reunion. It was multi-class reunion, and everybody was there. And it just felt like time had not passed. And we were talking about things and memories, and just it's such a good time. But, I just think about how and it's really strange for me to even talk about the concept of race, because I don't think along those lines. To even refer to someone as a black woman or a black man, I don't use those terms. I refuse to use those terms, because why can't a man be a man or a woman be a woman? But we're in this, and in order to get past it, I believe it's important to at least identify the frame of reference of okay, black man or white man or whatever, and then but understand that's not how I talk. But I think of the influences that I had as a kid growing up. Some of the most influential people in my life were men and women of color. Mrs. Brown in elementary school, she was amazing. What a loving, nurturing. And you talk to all of my friends in my class. If you talk about your top 5 teachers, Miss Brown's always going to be there. And then Coach Kemp, my tennis coach. He had such a great personality. We joked around, and just I so enjoyed him, not only in tennis but shop classes and things like that. And then I think about other influential people in the community that absolutely changed my life and changed my views towards things. One of them is animals. I love animals. I have 4 dogs now. I've always had dogs, but I didn't understand the concept of taking care of my animals. And I had a sick dog, and Dr. Poindexter at Prairie View A&M. I took Red Dog there, and he had parasites, and he says, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do the best I can. And he called me the next day and said, sorry, son, he didn't make it. And I'm thinking this is going to be an extremely expensive bill, the money that we didn't have. And he said, I just haven't. It says it was pretty extensive what we tried to do. And he says, before we talk money, he said, did you learn anything from this? Now, what are you going to do with your pets in the future? I said, I learned my lesson, sir. I'm going to make sure that if my dogs get sick, I'm going to come see you. He said, that's all I want to hear. There's no fee. There's no charge.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that would have been expensive for my family, but he said that, and I thought, wow. It changed my life the way and talk to my family, talk to my friends, talk to people that go to church. They see that there's this love and care and nurturing towards animals. I was thinking about my love for music, and then my love for music came when I was in the Waller County Fair. And of course, remember the fair?
Oh yeah.
And the parade. Remember how the parade used to be so big.
I used to play in the band too. Yeah, that was big time.
So we're in the junior high band and going in the parade, and right in front of us was the Prairie View A&M marching band.
Cool.
And it ignited something inside of me that I said, you know what? I don't know how to play an instrument, but I like that. I like that.
Right.
And so that got me hooked in the band, and even today. When my worship team is kind of transitioning from having babies to different jobs, they'll say, Pastor, you want to fill in on the bass? I play 4 times a week, 5 times a week sometimes, and that all comes from the influences that I had in my life, and it's just a huge influence of Prairie View A&M. So just those years growing up, and us all just being friends.
So being here in the area, in Tomball area, what do you think it's going to take for us to get past? What if everybody had, because the ultimate world would be everybody had the Richard Jennings view. What will it take to reach the world, our country at least, and to convince them that is the view to have, that there is only one race? We do it with the Erase Races. That's what our objective is. But what do you think it'll take? Like, because you've got a multicultural church, you live in this community. What kind of things do you think are important to happen within that small community so that they have that view?
I think what's so important is that first we realize everybody comes from someplace, and none of us, whether we're even raised under the same roof, have the same perspective because of the different events and traumas and victories in our life. And so we all see things just a little bit differently. And some have taught us what to think and what to say and how to react and how to respond. And we don't need to take the bait. We need to live that life where we have a wait and see approach. Why can't we just give people the benefit from the benefit of the doubt from the very beginning? I've had the privilege of we had a small Christian school here in the beginning days, and also watching children in the nursery and watching children in children's church. I've found this one thing is racism is, you're not born with it. Racism is taught. It's taught. Look at the kids when they're playing and there's plenty of toys. If there's not enough toys to go around, scarcity, that causes tension. But if there's enough to go around, you look at the kids, how they're playing and interacting with each other. They share with everybody, or they're stingy with everybody.
Right.
Right? It's not like, you look like me, act like me, I'm going to take my toys from you. No. That's taught. Right. So I think as easy as it is to have been taught one way, it's just as easy to move and say, you know what, I'm not going to function this way. I'm not going to allow this culture in my home as a parent, as a friend, as a pastor, and just turn the corner. And let's refuse to say that black man or that white woman or that white man or whatever. Why can't the man be a man and a woman be a woman? And realize that there's jerks, every tribe, race, color. They're everywhere. And then there's sweet, gentle, loving, generous people in every color, every culture.
So this is what I encounter. I encounter a lot of, because when I go out and start talking about erase races, especially from quote unquote black people, they will tell me, we suffered for 400 years and they've always done this to us. Why would we give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to change and do better? I've got my answer for that. How would you answer that? What's going to convince me? Say I'm that radical guy and I'm saying, no, they've had 400 years and they're still doing this. The white cops are shooting the black kids. They still think that we are thieves. They still think this. How would you change my view?
I think the very first thing we have to do is validate people's story. Validate their perspective. They feel that way for a reason. Maybe they're brainwashed, maybe somebody, but maybe they really did suffer some horrible injustice by a jerk somewhere along the line. Validate those stories. Validate their perspective, and don't just tolerate it, but empathize, even sympathize. I want to know. Tell me how that affected you. And then if it's a respectful conversation, it can come around to maybe some of the injustices I've been subjected to. I've had police pull guns on me 3 different times.
But you got white privilege, though.
Yeah. Well, actually, they changed the rules. Remember in high school, we were taking driver's ed, they said, okay, so when you get pulled over by the police, get out of your car, get your license and registration, and stand at the back of the car. Nobody sent me the memo. Nobody told me we're not supposed to not get out of the car anymore. So I'm 6'5", midnight. My car is swerving because my tires are bald. And I get out, and the first thing I do is I reach, as I'm headed towards the officer, I reach for my wallet to get my license and registration. And one jumped out of one side of the car, and the other one jumped out of the other side, and they drew down on me. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I'm getting out of the car like driver's ed said to. We don't do that anymore. You almost got shot. What are you reaching for? My license and registration. Yeah, so we all are subjected to some things. But I think really to get to the place where we can even have a conversation is say, I don't understand. Tell me what is that. Now what can we do to make it better? What can I do? I didn't do it, but what can we do to make it better?
So a lot of people tell me that this is kind of pie in the sky. The fact that you want to do away with concept of race, it's kind of pie in the sky, that, you're in dreamland. That's what somebody told me. They said you're living in Disneyland. And I said, Yeah, I said, and Mickey is fake, just like race is, you know. And so, but that was my response because that's just the way I think. But what do you think? I mean, do you think that that there will be a time in our era where we'll see that, you know, that more people will adopt this viewpoint? Because, you know, one of the things I've noticed in the news lately, whether it's Ken Ham, Answers in Genesis, whether it's Dr. Tony Evans, a lot of people are coming around. Even Bill Nye is saying that. Bill Nye, the science guy, is saying this, and you get more and more people. Now, 3-4 years ago, when I started talking about initiating this thing, you didn't have many people saying this. And so a lot of people are beginning to talk about the fact that there is only one race, and you hear people saying that. And so we probably need to think, you know, do you think we'll see that? Do you think that's going to happen?
I do think we're going to see it. I think we are already seeing it. It's a beautiful thing to see the light go off that, you know what, I don't have to think this way. I don't have to live this way. And I think it's so important that we just embrace the fact that it doesn't have to be. Now, let's move forward. I love in our church that we have Nigerians, and we have people from Kenya, and we have people from many places in the southern hemisphere that have come across, and people are fighting about all that today. But just to live together is an amazing thing. I presided over a Kenyan wedding. I didn't realize the culture was so rich. We have missionaries over in Kenya right now that they are winning entire villages, 100% conversion in the back villages of you know, outside of the Nairobi. It's a beautiful thing to see that, and to see the Kenyan bride coming down the aisle, dance. See, the culture is all the bridesmaids, they waltz, dance in, and then the last one is, of course, the bride. And then when they leave, walking out, then they're dancing all the way out. And I thought, why doesn't everybody do that? This is the happiest day of your life. And just the little things that I have been subjected to that I didn't even see coming. I thought, life can be so much richer. Yeah.
And that's really good. That's really good. And, you know, but most people would say that, all right, Richard Jennings and his River of Praise Multicultural Church, that's an anomaly, because we still have this narrative, and most people believe it, that 11 o'clock on Sunday is the most segregated hour in our country. And the fact that it is, what does that say about our country, and what do we do to alleviate that in the church? Because we're talking about the church.
Yeah.
You know, because one of the views I have is, wow, these people don't have a solid foundation and a reason to come together. Why should anybody else in our country?
That's right.
So
the church has to set the pace. I really do think so. I mean, God's intention is for us to all come together, and eventually we will. You know, every tribe, every nation, every tongue. I believe my Bible, we're all going to be singing the same song. But you know what? I believe God is sovereignly giving us divine appointments, connections with each other, but also people that we don't even know. One of our right-hand ladies, she's in my core leadership team, Sandy Cook. She's an amazing, God-fearing woman who's just had this favor and connection with other ladies in the African-American community. And she preaches conferences. She's on 24-hour phone intercessory prayer ministries. She's connected. She's us. But also God is using her to open up doors of relationship. And then my friend, he wouldn't mind this plug at all, Daniel Dean, the land clearing guy, you know, he's on my show all the time. Daniel, he's just had this passion to minister the word of God. And so he said, you know, I was doing some work at a church across town. They need some work. And as we were talking, I said, so tell me about your church. Tell me what's going on. Why do they have a revival meeting? And he started talking about his love for the Lord. And the lady said, you know, that I have one opening for this night, and I didn't know who was going to take that spot. But Mr. Daniel, I believe God wants you to take that spot. He didn't ask, and she didn't see it coming. He didn't see it coming. And that brother brought the house down. It's just one of those things where that if we just slow down and listen to what God wants us to do, I think it can be an amazing thing. God will do things for us that we cannot do for ourselves.
That's great, really good stuff. You know, and I think like you're saying, the church has got to lead the way on this thing. And if it doesn't happen with the church, and so one of the foundations of Erase Races is that we have these beliefs and commitments for each one of our areas of influence. thoughts, and churches being that foundational one, we have these beliefs. And so, and one of the things for the church, we say we believe that every man or woman, boy or girl is made in the image of God. Yep. And as such, we act on those beliefs. And so we commit ourselves, and that's one of the things, we commit ourselves to actions that support what we believe. Because, you know, often you get beliefs and everybody believes something, but their actions are somewhat different. And so that's what we definitely want to do. And so that's a lot of good information. We're going to go. We got some questions now from some people. And I know there are probably people out there who've got questions. If you got questions, go ahead and put them in the chat bar there, and we'll get to those questions. So we're going to start taking some of those questions. I got to get with my director and see what kind of questions we got so we can start those. But I'm looking at some of the postings there, and I'm seeing some of those. A lot of people have joined from around the country, which is really cool. Awesome. See, Sean from Virginia, that's cool. All right. Wow, you guess who? We got Amy Jennings.
What?
Yeah, that's really cool. All right. So you got some questions here we need to go through. Y'all got some questions for us, my production crew? I'm looking at some of those there, but they've scrolled past. Man. But let's, hey, the other thing, you know, I had this thing about Dr. King, because Dr. King, Dr. King, everybody quotes him. Everybody talks about he wants his kids judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And one of the things he said, which was really, I thought, really key, he said that the night before he was assassinated, he said that I might not get to that promised land with you, but I've looked over and seen the other side. And I think it's one of those things, you know, this is something I believe really fundamentally that will happen. The question is, will we be able to see it? Or, you know, it would be like Dr. King, well, yeah, but it's something that's going to happen. So I think that's one of the key things for proponents, for opponents of erase race. You might feel like our society, our country's not ready for that, but you've got to understand if God's got it ordained and it's going to happen, that unity thing that's going to happen, if he's really doing this thing, if he's behind it, it's going to happen. And so people have to decide if they want to be a part of what God has happening. And I think that's key, you know.
It's huge. This political climate that we're in right now, there's a lot of name calling, a lot of just ugly stuff. And I think it's so important that we don't take the bait of offense, that we don't try to just win an argument, but take that, it's the Joseph principle. What the enemy means for harm and destruction, that God can take it all and turn it around for all of our good. And so whether that's getting people to just have the conversation with us and then refute that lame argument. You know, this group of people don't want to help me. They don't want to have a relationship with me. Really? How so? Have you even tried? Have you even tried? And just push through that gently. Don't force. Just gently. And really, some of the arguments that people have lived on and lived with and hung on to for so long are so lame. It didn't take but just a couple of pokes at that, and that house of cards just falls. But it's not about winning an argument. I was preaching on Easter Sunday. I said, you know, one of Billy Graham's biggest statements was, my job is not to fix people. My job is to love people. And I think if we could spend more time loving people, and if they don't agree with us, or maybe they call us names, well, that's on them. That's not on me. I'm just going to love everybody, regardless. So
that's good. That's good. Let's see if we've got a question here. Whoa. What do you think? We got a question here. Good question.
Go.
What would Dr. King say about Trump? That's the question for you. Now, Richard, before Richard answers, all right, Richard is the pastor here, River of Praise, all right? So Richard's going to give a real world answer, all right? So Richard's going to give a real world answer. So he's asking, you know, what would Dr. King think of Trump? What would Dr. King do about Trump?
You know,
that's a very good question.
It's a very good question. But right around the time of Dr. King, there was also another president that shook things up. His name was John F. Kennedy. There was a lot of pushback with what they thought his agenda was and what his attitude was and how he wasn't a good fit and he was too radical and all these. There was a lot of name calling with, and of course he was assassinated. Please God, don't let anybody else be assassinated. But The bottom line is he is not your average politician.
I think a lot of people agree with that. A lot of people would say you're right about that.
He was not our average. Are there things about President Trump that I don't like? I don't like the name calling.
Right.
I don't like the posturing. And, people get a platform and they gain influence by the time that we give them, by the, we don't have to recognize them. Why are we giving people the platform to have any kind of prominence? He doesn't need to talk about Rosie. He doesn't need to talk about anybody. He needs to talk about policy and come up with good ideas. He is a businessman. And, I've said, I think we've had this conversation before. The American people weren't electing a pope. They were trying to, and they elected someone who really wants to get them some things done regarding the economy and business, and so he runs after things. I don't like the name calling. I don't like the bullying. I don't like a lot of things, but you know what? God, many times, because we read the Bible every year, cover to cover, and we're in the Old Testament again. We're in 2nd Chronicles now. And you go and you look at some of those Bible stories. Many times God used, and I'm not calling President Trump ungodly, I know a lot of people would. Many times God used secular, ungodly kings for the salvation and the advancement of his people. I think a lot of that's unfolding in front of our eyes right now. And it's captured the entire world's attention. The economy has, just the facts. The economy's never been as good for all elements of race and culture than it is right now. I think there's more progress, and I think President Trump plays his part, but so does the rest of Congress. But most importantly, us as citizens, we play the biggest part. And instead of griping and complaining and fear-mongering, I think what's important is that everybody just says, you know what? He is the president now, even though many didn't vote for him. Many did. The thing is, stop being presumptuous, stop fighting, and just say, well, what would happen if everybody wanted to take one step up on the rung of the ladder and get a promotion or actually get a job? Or the reason why they can't work is addressed. Maybe it's daycare. Maybe it's free daycare. I don't know. But my thoughts on President Trump were when there were 16. Let me just say it. When there were 16 candidates for the Republican Party, right. I was sitting with my best friend. He goes, "Who's going to be the Republican candidate?" That fast, I said Trump. Wow. I said it's going to be him. Why? Because everybody is sick and tired of politicians not getting anything done. And I said, I was right.
Yeah, all right. So I'm not going to let you off the hook here. Okay. The question is, what would Dr. King, you're going to be speculating, because you don't know, Dr. King is gone. You don't know, but
brilliant man.
Yeah, you knew what he stood for.
Yeah.
And what would be his view? Because that's the thing. I think a lot of people have adopted Dr. King's philosophy on life. Yeah. Even those who don't know it that well, they know his keywords, he said. Yeah. But what do you think would be Dr. King's take on Trump?
I think he would be disappointed in some areas. I really do, because of how he picks at people, and he always gives somebody a name. He brands people. He was a very honorable man, a very respectful man. He wanted to give people the benefit of the doubt. He was about character. Dr. King was about character. Wanted everybody to have an equal playing field. So there'd be some things he would be disappointed in. But I also think that if Dr. King could see the actual direction, not what he says, but the direction that he has taken regarding advancements in many parts of our society that have been left behind, I think he would say, hey, wait a second. Something is happening here that we did not see coming. So let's don't fight all of this. Let's come to the table. Like I've seen this from a lot of my African American pastor friends, that they're sitting at the table. Of course, and they're being called all kinds of names for doing that. But you're going to have a greater chance of influencing somebody when you're sitting at the table versus standing outside the room lobbing accusations over the door.
I'm going to ask you about that too a little bit later. I want to get to another question, but I'm going to ask you about that because there's, there are a lot of Candace Owens and a lot. It seems like there are more people in the African American, dark skinned, Black population who are standing up for conservative, liberal, Republican viewpoints. Why do you think that's happening? What's going on there? What do you think is going on there?
I think there are many in this broad, multifaceted culture that are finally, they're saying, why have I always believed that? Because someone's told me. You know what? I want to see for myself. That's not what that person said. This is with the beauty of social media and how quickly we can go find out what the person really said. Not just what somebody spoon feeds us, but really have the ability with technology to go see no, what really was said, and then find out maybe a lot of what everybody's believes on both sides of the aisle, that we believe lies. And it's like, you know what, I'm tired of living a lie. I'm tired of believing a lie. Let's start that conversation over. And as believers, as of course I'm a pastor, it's like, it's time that we seek the truth. We seek the truth. In John 8:31, Jesus said this. He says, talking to the Jews, but I believe it transcends that and is talking to us. He says, if you continue in my word, then you're my disciples. And you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It's time to be seekers of the truth in the Word of God, but also truth in the integrity of people's lives. Not just what they say, but do they live what they say? So,
well, that's cool. And now, very good points. None of those are controversial. Everybody will agree with what you said. There's some hot ticket items out there. I'm going to ask you one. I'm going to prepare you for this hot ticket item. This is a big one.
I love hot ticket items.
Oh my goodness, this is a big one. All right. It's been getting a lot of press lately that people have been asking for reparations. Reparations. Yeah, and so you got background on that. You know what they've been asking for. They've been saying, hey, for 400 years we suffered this. And
I need 40 acres on mule.
Slavery.
Yeah.
So what is Richard Jennings' take on the request for reparations?
There's so in one sense, I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning, that we need to have the conversation with people that feel they are victims of injustice. They've been robbed, they've been cheated, their ancestors were, and let's have the conversation. And then get the conversation around. It's not like you're choosing sides, you're running into opposite corners, but no, I want to hear you. And so, but let's get past that. Let me ask the question. Were you ever a slave? No, not your grandma. Your great grandma. Okay, great grandma was a slave. That was terrible. That was terrible. But so I make it right regarding your grandma and great grandma by giving you 40 acres. And what kind of reparations do you want? I always hear reparations, but so how do you quantify what the solution is? Who gets what? I mean, that's a deeper conversation. You can scream reparations all day long, but who gets the money? Who do you take it from? And this person that you're taking it from, what did they do wrong? What did they do wrong? Okay, so here, my grandmother was full-blooded Choctaw. Granddaddy was 3/4 Cherokee. His family, they walked the Trail of Tears, and many of them died. So you're getting 40 acres and a mule. You could have the mule, but if you really want to go back, that 40 acres was my great-great-great-granddaddy's 40 acres, because if we're talking about my dad's side was over 75% Native American. So, I mean, how far back are we going to go? There's always been injustice. There's always been thievery. There's always been hurt and pain. And we want to go back and we want to do the reparations thing. I think it's misguided. I really do think it's misguided. But in this sense, I believe that more than, okay, so let's quantify what realistic reparations is. And I think it needs to be, okay, so for whatever reason, you're not at the same level economically or socially as people maybe in a different color or culture or class. So how do we get you there? I'm just like, whether it's or cell phones or electric bills or housing or whatever, instead of taking the gimme, which, some people do need those things, but why not change the attitude, change the direction of the conversation? Says, instead of anybody giving you anything, how about opportunities for career development? How about someone taking care of the children? So if mom wants to work, mom and dad want to work, then they can work. Let's address the roadblocks and the issues that's keeping everybody from achieving the American dream and being everything that they really feel in their heart to be. I just think reparations is it's like putting a Band-Aid on a tumor. The problem is not who gets reparations and where does it come from. The problem with reparations is it's like, I'm going to get you back for what you did to me. And I didn't do anything to you, or someone didn't do something to them. It's disappointing and it's misguided. Mm-hmm. And I really think that there is an opportunity that when this conversation begins to grow, because I do think some of this is going to grow, I think we take this conversation into, well, tell me what does it look like to you? And who are you going to get this from? Now, go beyond that, is how can we work together as one race to help you get to that spot?
And that's the thing I think that's so important that we talk about in Erase Races. Any solution, mm-hmm. whether it's reparations, non-reparations, any solution that is going mm-hmm. to be arrived, then it has to be done together. And so before we start making, because anything else, because of the way the political atmosphere is in our country right now, the separation, the bitterness, the animosity, that we are not going to arrive at the optimal solution, because I'm really trying to win. I want to win over you rather than coming to a mutual solution that benefits us both. Mm-hmm. I'd rather take a loss if I beat you. I'd rather some bad things happen to me if I can just beat you. I can win against you. And so we've got to do something about that. And I think that's very big. So reparations, that one's going to come up and it's going to be an issue. And I think we've got to deal with it smartly. And I think the ultimate answer is we've got to unify. We've got to unify and come up with solutions, like I said, because what you really want, I think what people really want is opportunity.
I think so.
And I think that's what we got to, but then again, I think that's maybe a tough question, because some people, maybe if you ask them, would you like opportunity that is before you for the rest of your days, or do you want them to give you this 40 acres of mule? I'm not so sure a lot of those people would say, just give me opportunity. I think a lot of people would say, give me this thing because you owe me this thing. Mm. And I think that's the problem. And that's where we are. And so we got to kind of have a dialogue about that.
Yeah. It's so important for us to realize that you can live and die on this hill of the one right now we're talking about is reparations. Or you can, in order to receive something, you have to let go what's in your hand in order to receive mm-hmm. something else. And working at Compact Computers for all those years, I was in several of those factories, and I had promotion opportunities and moved into engineering, and, mm-hmm. and I saw every tribe, every color, every culture, every vibe, people from all around the world working, and just the way people perceived and communicated and worked together, and body language, and things that made their motor run, and things that really demotivated them, and so it was such a blessed time for me as pastor, knowing that people do value things differently, but to see the good news spread fast, that when someone outside of the norm, as far as the outer shell, somebody outside of outer shell got a promotion. What? I thought only this person could be promoted, whether it's a woman or man or whatever color or age. I know there's not supposed to be, any kind of discrimination, but we get those perceptions that it's there. If we perceive that it is, and guess what it is. Yeah. But to see people get promoted that are outside of those norms, so they say, well, if they can, I can too. And then just see people advancing and moving on and even quitting and finding another job, that one thing led to another, and just to see those opportunities. It was really a painful thing when everything started getting outsourced to other parts of the world, and manufacturing left America. But I'm glad to see that whether it's the president or Congress, All I know is I see manufacturing coming back. I see opportunities coming back. And there's a lot of people my age and maybe even a little bit younger that they were the bones of manufacturing, that they know what it takes to build good products and to do it efficiently. I just can't wait to see those things come back and to see people from all different cultures just get to be a part of that. Yeah.
All right, one more hard question.
No,
all right,
it's not this hard.
This is a hard one. All right, this is a hard one. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. A lot of people feel like it's the issue of white privilege. Let's talk about that. All right,
Really?
They say there's white privilege. White privilege is the fact that slavery happened for 400 years. As a matter of fact, it's 2019, 400-year anniversary of slavery. And they feel like that a lot of people profited off of slavery.
Sure,
and, you know, if you look at Reconstruction and what happened after Reconstruction, even a lot of the gains or some of the lands that were given to freed slaves were once again stripped again after Reconstruction. And they had these laws called the Black Codes. A lot of things that were really just, dehumanizing and did a lot of things to Black people. And so how do we address or what is the way that we address that? You know, because people will term that today as they would say, yes, but because Richard's, he's got his Choctaw side, but he's got his European side, and because his ancestors then had opportunities that perhaps my ancestors didn't have. You know, how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
Maybe you've answered that somewhat already, but
well, there's a lot of people that are pushing division in our country, and we don't want to we shouldn't get offended by that. We should refute that. I remember the first time I heard the word white privilege. I was actually ministering in a it was an intense moment. A tragic situation happened, and I'm ministering in a multicultural environment. And somebody said, "Well, you don't understand because you got all that white privilege working for you." I'm like, "White privilege? What is white? Somebody tell me what." And they're laughing because I don't even know what the term. It's the first time I ever heard it. What the term white privilege is. I started thinking, white privilege, what a concept. What a concept. And so I began to have the conversation away from the podium, the pulpit. I said, white privilege, let me give you a little bit of my white privilege. My parents, I'm not going to dishonor them, so I'm leaving some of the details out, but my parents were married, divorced, remarried each other, divorced, and then they married other people. And what my white privilege got for me was my parents were too proud to ever get any kind of government assistance. My parents, in their dysfunctional mess, were too proud to go running back home or to live with someone else. My white privilege caused my mom to go get a job at Ecker Drugs and begged the boss to let her have all the expired Valentine's Day candy and the extra popcorn that was in the popcorn popper and the expired cans of pork and beans and the cheese that was recently expired. That's what we lived on for a long time. For a long time. Moved. They finally got back together and living out in the country. Many times the butane tank ran out and didn't have any heat. Mom bought our clothes at a garage sale. Hair was long, not because I thought it was cute. My mom couldn't afford a haircut. I wasn't about to let her cut it.
And it's
people look at you and I, and maybe we have a nice car today, or say, "Oh, they're spoiled. They have no idea." No, they have no idea that most of my life, before I got my degree, I worked 3 jobs. And ramen noodles was a staple in my house. Burritos, 2 burritos for $1 with a piece of that single slice cheese on it. That was lunch. That's the way lunch was. 3 little kids working 60 to 80 hours a week, full-time ministry, going to school. I don't know how I did it. Sometimes that's when I fell in love with coffee, because that's what kept me awake. But at the end of the day, God was faithful. I didn't blame anybody for my situation. I did. I complained one time. Paid my tithes, worked in ministry at the church, working my job. That was before I even heard the concept overtime. And I just began to gripe. I said, God, I'm here at this church, and I'm looking at the parking lot. Everybody's got a new Suburban. They got this, and that person got a brand new boat, and got 5 friends that just started companies, and everybody seems to be doing really well. And I pay my tithes, and I never miss church, and I always volunteer for new things. Why can't I be blessed like that? So here's the empowering question. Lord, if there's something that I need to do or that I can do to better my situation, I know you want to bless me. What is it? 2 words: work overtime. Never thought about working overtime. This is where I worked at. You just worked hard. You got paid what they want to give you. I went to my boss the next day. And I said, I know the company's growing. This is a compact. Your company's growing. And if you ever get shorthanded on the night shift and you need somebody to come in and work, I heard it pays time and a half. I promise you, I'm going to work a time and a half harder than anybody else. And if we get to 60 hours, boss, it's double time. I'm going to work twice as hard as anyone else. You watch. Give me a chance. And they got shorthanded one day, and they said, hey, if you want to work, we got a spot for you. And I put everything I had into it. And that supervisor at the end of the night, he said, hey, listen, if you ever want to work overtime, I'll make room for you. I remember, when you get the thing from the Social Security Department, at this year you made this much money, and this year you made this much, and if you retire at this age, this is how much your check's going to be. When the Lord spoke to me, work overtime, you could tell by looking at my thing, I earned almost double what I made the year before because of overtime. Sometimes we're like, why won't God bless me? Well, maybe we need to listen for the answer. Maybe it's work overtime. Maybe it's get a different job. But I don't know. Maybe there's people that would say I've experienced white privilege, but that's.
So we have this idea, because one of the things, amazingly, I've talked about my mom and dad, and how in our home, my dad used the term Negro all the time. And he never used anything condescending about anybody else, but he used the term Negro. So we kind of understood who we were, in that vein. But we never saw ourselves as, he never equated that to being a term that meant you can't do, or you can't, or that something that there's a ceiling for you. And so now, like I said, Dwayne was a judge. I've got my sister who's a lawyer. I have a sister who's the principal of this advanced high school, and the brother is a preacher, and the other brother is a medical doctor. And so I was the lower guy on the family. It was the lieutenant colonel.
You got the privilege. You got the privilege.
And that's the point. I said, my mom, it was one of those fundamental things. My mom always said this, and my brother was, quite a bit older, 6-7 years older than the rest of us, the kids. And we remember our mom telling, when our brother went to him when he was very young and said he wanted to be a trash man. And our mom said, you be the best one there. And it was amazing because it set the rest of our minds in order. And so we went on and achieved, the things that we did. And it was just like, it was so cool. It was so cool that we had this mindset. And we were like, because our parents never gave us a ceiling. And so when I hear people today, when I hear people saying, however, you don't have the opportunities, you don't have the privilege, I go, what? My mom was the first lady way before Michelle Obama was ever there, And that because in our mind, our mom set the standard for what could happen in our lives. And so there was no ceiling. And so I came with this thing, I said, the excellence creates privilege, because that's what our parents taught us, that if you're excellent, you got whatever privilege you create, and it's up to you. And so we've always kind of carried that there may be injustice that happens to people. May be injustice that happens to me. That doesn't stop me. That does not stop me.
It doesn't define you.
And how do we change minds to really so that people believe in themselves? Because that's what it is. And you're in that business. You're in the mind change, and let God do the heart change. So how do we do that?
I think the first thing we have to do is we have to move outside of our protective shell, outside of our bubble, and let's be more intentional about really living life together. That's good. Who actually gets to come over to my house?
Right.
Who's in my house?
Mm-hmm.
Who's on my baseball team? Who's in my fishing boat? Who's riding in the Jeep with me? You know, when I'm out back barbecuing with friends or whatever, who's cooking, right? What are we doing together? Yeah, just go back to seasons, even in manufacturing. You know, who were my go-to guys, the ones that brought me peace, that I knew I could turn to and say, hey, this is my core team. I look at it, man, I'm telling you, very few white people, why are we using that term, but we're talking about it, right, were the go-to guys or go-to ladies. Mm-hmm. Because they thought that they were, you know, why am I not in the office, or I need to go do something different. And the people that were working around me were just people that were glad that you know what, we're getting good. I mean, some of these people that were in the factory from the very beginning, their employee number, my employee number was 8627. I can't believe I still remember that. But there were people, their employee number was 300 or 500. And they got these huge stock options, right? Mm-hmm. Right? They go pay cash for their house, and like, because they were at the right place at the right time. And they understand how things work, and they work hard, and they get good performance appraisals and opportunities. And I'll tell you what, I'm so blown away by the experiences that I had when I was in college. I had the most multicultural study groups in college. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why is because I had spent so many years in that manufacturing environment that was so multicultural, that it was just comfortable for me to run to certain personalities, mm-hmm. and we just clicked. You know, graduated with a 3.69 magna cum laude. Wow. Yeah, whatever, right? It wasn't me just doing it. I had some great people on my team, and
well, I think you hit a very key word there, and I want to stress this. I want to stress this in our campaign for the next 2.5, 3 years. So we talk about it, and the key word you used there was intentionality.
Yes. And
I think we've got to be. You know, one of the things when we did our last Facebook Live last month, one of the guys coming in said, you need to check your Facebook friends and see how they look. Are they all the same? You know,
think about it.
And so there's got to be some intentionality. And one of the things that we make in our tenets of sponsorship, when we send it out to churches and businesses, mm-hmm. we ask them to, that's one of the beliefs and commitments, that they commit to intentionality, because we do. We got to kind of step out of our safety zones, you know, and do something different. And like you said, have somebody over your house, you know, really meet people down on a very personal level. And I think that's what we've got to do. Because like I was telling the story about my dad, who never spent any time in an integrated environment, who probably never had someone of your persuasion sit down at dinner at his house, the two of them, and have dinner, which I grew up with that. I mean, and being in the Marine Corps, I mean, gosh, my goodness. One of my friends, their daughter just had a child, and it's like it was our child, you know. Right. And so, because we're a family and we're bonded like that. So, all right. So we got any closing words? We're about to close out. I might have some more questions here, but you got any closing words? We're going to close out. Well, good stuff, though.
You know, I think probably the one thing I do want to address is that when ugly, racist, divisive things pop up in our community, we have to be, we need to have the courage and the fortitude to confront that. We don't have to be mean when we confront things, but certain times in our town, I've had to be the lead dog pulling the sled, saying, listen, doesn't matter what's happened in the past. We've made a lot of progress, but we got a lot more progress to make. And we're not going to be painted in this light anymore. We are not going to just be okay with this being in our town anymore. And so we stood against some things, and I was amazed at how many churches and how multicultural it ended up being. There were some people that troublemakers want to show up in town and really make it all that it wasn't. It was a peaceful protest. Some key leaders were reprimanded in our town, and it changed the whole landscape, the political landscape, the cultural landscape, the religious landscape in our town. And it was only because me and a handful of other people, but most importantly, our congregations came together and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. Change can happen that quick and I believe God will order our steps. And when these opportunities to just stand for what's right, and Erase Race is right. I do. It is right. And when we come together and we stand in the gap for brothers and sisters that for whatever reason they don't have the voice or the prominence or whatever you want to call it in order to be heard, then we need to be that for our brothers and sisters. If you do it unto the least of these, the Lord says you've done it unto me.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Really great words as we close out. Really good words. And I think Rich said it. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's this thing where when we come together, that's going to make the difference. The unity is going to be the answer, and we do this thing together, because anything else is less than our best. And I think that's what we want to do. We want to give our best. And so I want to thank Rich for being here today. This was outstanding. I'm at his place. I'm going to come back and do more of these at his place because I like his place. He's got a ping pong table back there. I'm going to play some ping pong. We're going to play some ping pong. And so a great time. And so hope you got a lot out of this broadcast. You know, remember, you can buy T-shirts. Go to our website, read some of the blogs, kind of get our mindset. Yes, we're trying to brainwash you because dirty minds need to be washed, all right? So we're trying to fix that, all right? But so really, just great opportunities. Hey, we got a planned tour 2020. It's called the American Unity Movement, Erase Race. And that, you can't see that on the shirt, but it's got the American Unity Movement over here somewhere. Yeah, oh, here you go. Yeah, so check that out. And if you got any questions, you know, hey, I'm the guy actually responding. So if you got some questions, put it on our website. I am actually going to respond.
If somebody has a question for me,
hey, and Rich,
you got my number.
And seriously, because Rich from day one has been like, I'm down with that. And so hopefully you all can be. We've got a church interchange that's coming up. We want churches to participate in that because we're going to do some intentional things with churches. Churches are going to go out and host other people in their midst. And it's going to be great. The unity movement is going to happen. So get with us at EraseRace.
Can I give a plug?
Yes.
Give a plug. Okay, so here's my plug. We are the church that has the cross of Tomball.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't mention the cross.
That's okay. So
the cross.
The Grand Parkway at 249, there's this 125-foot cross.
It's awesome.
And this 125-foot cross is for everybody. Everybody. Listen, there's times I'm telling you what, you want to feel the power of God, go sit under that big 125-foot cross. Listen, that was expensive. It's extravagant. There's a credible story behind that. This lady that loves Tomball and loves us said, you know what, I want to put that cross right there. And you know what, God loves you more than that level of extravagance. He does. So come on, pray, hang out.
I'm gonna get Rich. We're gonna do one of our shoots from the cross one of these days, especially in the summer as it gets lighter, longer. We're gonna go out there and do a shoot from the cross. That's gonna be awesome. All right.
Yeah.
So look him up. River of Praise. He's the man. River of Praise is happening. They got the place here, and they got the cross.
Yeah,
you know, the cross is boss. All right, remember that. All right. So, hey, we're out. We thank you all for watching Erase Race's Facebook Live. Join us again 2 weeks. We'll be back to do the same thing. And remember, there's only one race, and you're in it.
That's it. That's good.
So very good.